One of the things that we're seeing is the increase in high-intensity fire occurrence. 10, 15, 20 years ago, it was relatively rare for our population, particularly in the western U.S., to actually experience wildfire. It was fairly rare from one year to another, and it was relatively seldom for an individual. Perhaps Southern California might have been an exception to that. So how is it that we're getting more frequent fires of higher intensity and greater extent in the West than we used to have? I think that there are two principal factors that are going on. One of which, of course, is the weather situation, and another that is greatly more subtle is not only the increase in vegetation that we're seeing, particularly in the western U.S., but a different type of vegetation. So previously, and now I'm talking, let's say, 150, 200 years ago, let's say in western Montana and Idaho, we had ponderosa pine stands. Because ponderosa pine actually evolved with the presence of fire, fairly frequent fire, we find that the ponderosa pine largely supported surface fire, not high-intensity fire. And because of that, other trees such as Douglas fir, which are quite capable of coming in and growing in the understory of the ponderosa pine, were largely kept at bay. Now that we have less fire and have had less fire, particularly over the last 100 years from land use practices as well as fire suppression, what we're seeing are those trees such as Douglas fir beginning to grow in the understory. And they're growing to the point of where not only do they have branches in the understory all the way to the surface, but they're extending up into the canopy of the ponderosa pine. So not only do we have an increased density of the conifer canopy, but we also have vegetation, fuel, going all the way to the surface. And this increases the likelihood of high-intensity fire over a large area of continuous canopy. Add to that the fact that we seem to be having longer summers with regard to our high temperatures and low relative humidities, as well as reduced rainfall during those summer months. Coupling that with the increase in the vegetation, and we produce extensive high-intensity wildfires that are influencing largely urban populations. They're moving into areas close to the wildlands, and they are absolutely unaccustomed, not only from the environment that they moved from, but also with the frequency, the increased frequency that we seem to be having.